Today, I will tell you about the amazing ability of our brains to connect to one another without even saying a single word. From the moment we're born, we come equipped with the ability to communicate through our faces and eyes. Indeed, it's often said that the eyes are the windows to the soul. But what does that really mean? What kind of messages are being relayed by the human eyes? To answer this question, we have to travel back in history a little bit to understand the social conditions in which humans have lived and evolved. And when we go there, we find out that humans have a long history of living in very complex social and group conditions. And it has been theorized that precisely these environmental conditions favoring good social skills have led to the development and specializations of our brain to specifically perceive faces, eyes, and social information in general. Indeed, the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis, or the social brain hypothesis, proposes that our large and quite functionally complex brain is a direct consequence of our exceptional social abilities that have evolved through social competition to achieve greater success and survival. It is interesting to note that the ability to communicate social information visually is not unique to humans. In fact, we see this across a variety of animal species, as for example here, peacock showing off its colorful tail in the act of courtship, but also spiders. They weave webs with patterns that have specific communications to their predators and prey. So in my research, I have studied the ability of human faces and eyes to communicate social information. And what I will do today is share with you 3 ways in which we have found faces communicate social information. First, we found that simply being able to see the faces is one of the keys to social communication, successful social communication. Second, we found that we can understand what others think and feel just by looking at their eyes. And third, what I'll show you are studies on eye contact as one of the primary means of visual social information and the prevalence of eye contact in our daily life or our daily interactions. So our research shows that being able to see the faces is one of the keys to successful social information or transfer, social communication transfer. How do we study this? Well, we present our participants, human participants, just like yourself, with pictures like these, and we ask them to identify what kind of emotion is this person feeling. And we do this while presenting images occluded, such as this, but also occluded images, just as these, where parts of the faces are visually not available. And what we find is the following. So now I'm going to show you a bar graph of accuracy recognition, where higher bar means good recognition. So when faces are visible, humans are pretty good at detecting emotion information, so about at 75%. But when faces are not visible, this drops about 25%. So just being able to see the faces fully is one of the key components of our visual social communication. But what kind of informations are being relayed by our faces, by our eyes? We have recently, and this is actually just hot off the press, this paper has just been published last week, demonstrated that people can communicate their internal mental states, something that we think and feel, through our eyes, through our gaze. So how do we study this? Well, we had actors come into our laboratory, and we asked them to look left and right. But critically, in some conditions or in some cases, we told them choose whether to look left or right. And then in other cases, we told them look left, look right. And so what this created are identical conditions in everything except one aspect, such as in the cases when our actors chose where to look, they had intentionality in their looks. But when we told them where to look, that intentionality was absent. So then we took these videos, we mixed them up, and we showed them to naive observers who did not know any of the instructions we gave to our gazers. And we asked them to guess where the person is going to look just before they move their eyes. And so what this looks like is basically person looking at the center. We stop the video and say, guess, where's this person going to look? And this is what we have observed. Now, this is, again, a bar graph, but this bar graph, lower bar means better because it's a bar graph of speed. And we found that people were, in fact, faster to predict where the actor is going to look when they chose where they're going to look versus when we told them where they're going to look. And so what this told us is that the speed of response is indicative of their sensitivity to the information, mental state information in the eyes of the gazer. And indicated to us that that humans can understand mental states, glean others' mental states just by looking at the eyes. So this could mean that we look at the eyes all the time, right? Because these are very important. They give us very important information. And how we study this is by using these fancy eyeglasses. And these eyeglasses are actually eye trackers. So these glasses can tell us where people look and how often they look, and especially in interactions, in real life interactions like these, such as these two talking. And so what we can measure now is basically how long people look eye to eye, how long they look elsewhere in natural interactions. Here's a bar graph again. What we found was actually quite surprising. In natural interactions, people spend only at about 3% of their time looking eye to eye. The remaining about 9% people looked at other parts of faces, but overwhelmingly, our pairs did not look at each other while conversing in 88% of the time. Now you can ask yourself, well, okay, these are strangers. I don't look at strangers when I talk to them. What happens when I talk to my friends? Well, this is the exact question that we had, and we repeated this experiment where we asked pairs of friends to come and talk while wearing these fancy eyeglasses. And maybe you can predict what happened, but the data are virtually identical. Once again, only 3% of the time friends spent looking eye to eye. Again, some other small percentage of the time they spent looking eye to mouth or mouth to mouth, so other parts of the face, and overwhelmingly not looking at one another while conversing. So what this tells us is that even though eyes contain important information, in natural interactions, we do not engage in eye contact very often. And so in summary, I've shown you at least 3 ways that my lab has studied in which we can connect socially with others via faces and eyes. Being able to see the faces is one of the keys to successful social interaction. Eyes give us information about what others think and feel. And eye contact, in fact, is surprisingly quite rare in our natural interactions. So these 3 ways of connecting show that our brain has a natural superpower that comes equipped with it. It just comes naturally with our brains to connect to one another socially without saying a word. And that, in fact, reveals the amazing human social brain. Thank you very much.